Hey everyone, I'm Zenith Priest, and welcome to my introduction for Sharp Fangs Behind the Leaves, where I'll give you insight into the nature of this spirit and show you how to chase off the invaders by turn 5. Sharp Fangs is a moderate complexity spirit with a fair amount of each trait other than utility. We start with a presence in the highest jungle and another presence anywhere there's a beast. I'll go over this decision specifically before we start the demo game. Our play style relies on controlling the beasts, needing them explicitly for our innate powers, and being leery of blighted lands. Being an ally of the beasts allows us to move our presence when they move, and with call forth predators, we can replace our presence with more beasts. These special rules open up a number of choices. Should I move with the beasts, and where? Which presence do I replace, and when? I'll go over specific reasoning during the demo game, but as a couple rules of thumb, try not to strand your presence with no beasts outside the jungles, and replace your presence as often as you're comfortable with. During the growth phase, we get to choose twice from the 4 options. Reclaiming will also gain a power, but costs us an energy, nudging us towards extending our hand if possible. If we find ourselves without energy, we'll have to use a different growth option first to gain the energy necessary. Our only presence option has good range, but restricts us to only jungles or lands with beasts, which may not always be where our presence is located. Since beasts are critical to our offensive strategy, we'll need to consider this when moving them around the island. The last options are more straightforward, gaining a power and an energy, or simply gaining energy. Our growth tracks offer a moderate amount of energy and card plays after investing a number of turns to get there. The energy track offers more elements at first, needing 3 turns before seeing a second energy, and the card plays takes 2 turns before being able to play more. My strategy for this intro will be to focus on the top track to open up the elements, while using growth options 2 and 3, keeping our hand fed while placing presence every turn. Sharp Fangs has 2 innate powers. Ranging Hunt allows us to move beasts into critical areas, doing damage along the way. As our primary means of destroying invaders, it's important to hit this as often as possible. Note that we're unable to target blighted lands, needing some other way to deal with invaders there. Frenzied Assault causes fear and does damage in a land with beasts. The elemental cost is fairly high, making this a mid to late game tactic. We might get lucky enough with our power options to use this as early as turn 4, but generally it won't be an option until after we reclaim. For our unique powers, Prey on the Builders gathers a beast into one of our lands and stops a build if beasts are present. Blighted lands or stopping a city from building are good targets for this power. Too Near the Jungle causes fear and destroys an explorer as long as you have presence in a jungle nearby. As a slow power, we won't be able to use this reactively, so consider your position and how likely you are to catch that stray explorer. Teeth Gleam from Darkness gives us the option for a little fear and placing a beast, or gaining even more fear if target land has beasts and invaders. When we use this tends to indicate which option we choose. Early on, it's good for adding a beast into a land you want to do damage, or into a land you'll need presence next turn. Once you've got enough beasts in place, that'll be less of a concern, and you can focus on increasing the fear count instead. Keep in mind, we have to be in a jungle nearby for this power as well, and we're not able to target blighted lands. Terrifying Chase pushes out non-city invaders and or Dahan in one of your lands. More if beasts are present, and adding fear if you push invaders. You must push as many as possible, so if you have a specific plan for this power, keep track of your beasts. And with that, let's get started on a demo game. As a moderate complexity spirit that requires the Branch and Claw expansion, we won't have a power progression deck, but I've disabled the events to keep decisions as simple as possible. This gives us access to command the beasts once the invaders reach stage 2. I've limited its use to show you how the spirit operates without it, but if you play this way normally, feel free to use it whenever you find value. First, the choice of where to place our second presence. Generally, look for what gives you the most access, even if that places you on an ally's board. For solo play, I'd recommend land 1 for board A, getting closer to the coasts. On board B, land 5 puts you right in the center. With board C, you don't get a choice. And I'd make a sacred site on board D, as the beast on land 3 is a ways away, and we can always put a presence in the coastal jungle when we need to. Alright, let's begin. Turn 1. Placing our second presence in Land 5, we find the invaders wandering into the jungles. As I said in the intro, we're going to primarily use options 2 and 3 for growth, and whenever we decide to gain a power, we want to do it as soon as possible to better inform our next choices. Even though our primary elements are animal and leaf, this first power doesn't need to have either. The caveat is that if it doesn't, we'll need to play it this turn. If we don't find anything to play that screams to be played this turn, prioritize animal over leaf. This will help facilitate a continuous ranging hunt. Our choices begin with Steam Fence, offering none of our elements, but it does destroy an explorer in the fast phase. Because we have an explorer in a blighted jungle, this is definitely one to consider. Infested Aquifers offers an animal and can damage invaders in a diseased land, or add fear and a disease if we target mountains or wetlands. It is likely that one of those two lands will explore next, but as a slow power with a range of 0, we'll need to commit to being in both lands to make use of it. Overall, worth considering, even if maybe for a different turn. Call to Migrate also offers an animal and lets us set up a nice counterattack. It would blight the land, so we need to be careful to use it in a land we're not likely to come back to. On this board, that would be land 7 or 8, so we could park Dahan in the mountains, as they should be able to handle the jungles on our own. Fire in the Sky doesn't have our elements, but 2 Fear and a Strife is a pretty strong option. The catch is that it does require a Sacred Site. As a spirit not likely to have much presence on the island, because we're continuously replacing them with beasts, we want to be cautious about picking up these kinds of powers. While it's true that we have consistent mobility, it's a restriction to our ranging hunt that we might not always be able to afford. This time, I'm going with Steam Vents as the simplest answer to our current problem. Since the blighted land is in the jungle, let's place our presence there to free up ranging hunt for something else. Pulling from the top track gives us an animal, so any power paired with Steam Vents gets us movement from ranging hunt. While we could use both our leaf powers to do damage this turn, in general, I found this to be an overreach that leaves us vulnerable to needing both of our elements on future card picks. Spreading them out allows us to be more consistent with our overall damage. So let's pair up Terrifying Chase to either clear the jungles or the wetlands if they explore. That makes how to use Ranging Hunt clear this time, as we'll need to be in the wetlands for that scenario. We'll leave the beast there to help with extra damage if we clear the jungles instead. Building in the upper jungle, the invaders then venture out into the mountains. With Terrifying Chase, let's clear our jungles, pushing the invaders into the wetlands, and the Dahan into the mountains, solving 2 of our problems at the same time. Turn 2. The coastal mountains is our only concern at the moment, so let's see what we can do to prepare by grabbing another power. This time, Animals is our priority, as it guarantees Ranging Hunt deals damage for at least 2 turns. If we can't find animals, pick a leaf card for turn 4. Inflame the Fires of Life provides every element, even the minor ones, and we can easily reach the threshold to do both portions, adding a disease, a fear, and a strife close to a sacred site. A tempting choice all on its own, and with none of the other powers offering animals, we take this without any other consideration. Our presence continues to come off the top, creating a sacred site in the lower jungles to make use of our new power. We want to start chipping away at the upper wetlands, so replace our presence there with a beast. Teeth Gleam will bolster our coast with beasts, allowing us to take out the city later, and our new power will keep the coastal mountains safe. A Ranging Hunt takes out a town and an explorer, gathering the upper jungle beast and pushing 2 beasts down into land number 1. The invaders only build in the upper mountains, and then they explore further into the sands. As planned, Inflame the Fires gives us time to deal with the city and gains us our first fear card. Teeth Gleam places a beast there as well to prepare for its destruction. The lower sands would also be a good choice if you're uncomfortable with the land blighting. Turn 3. With the sands our only threat, let's gain another power to see what we can do. This time, we have some leeway looking for either leaf or animals. A leaf power should be saved for next turn, whereas an animal power can be played either turn. In this set, Quicken the Earth's Struggles lets us damage buildings or defend a land with our sacred site, and has the animal we're looking for. However, we're a little out of position to create a relevant sacred site this turn, and aren't likely to need it next turn. Devouring Ants also needs a sacred site, but with a range of 1, we can see more immediate value. This takes out one of the towns that we'll build, and has a required element, so we'll consider this one. Encompassing Ward provides defense in our lands, but without our elements, we'll need to pass. Here There Be Monsters does have our element, and allows us to push a non-city invader or a Dahan. It also generates fear, with a little extra if a beast is present. Either this one or Devouring Ants seem viable, so I'm going to grab monsters because they're more thematically appropriate. Opening up a second energy, we'll place our presence in the upper jungle and replace it with a beast, looking to destroy the wetland town and relocate our presence. Our plays will be 2 near the jungle and monsters, 1 to handle the build, and the other for whatever explores. There is a small risk by moving our presence into the sands. If the wetland explores, we may lose our chance to destroy the higher explorer, but taking out the town and dealing with the sands is worth the risk. Dahan threatens add strife in a land with Dahan, which will be sufficient to keep the upper mountain from blighting. With that land cleared, the invaders continue to build in the sands before exploring back into the mountains. The upper explorer is clearly too near the jungle, gaining us a second fear card, and our monsters chase the town out of land 5 and into the beasts waiting in the coastal wetlands. Turn 4. With only 1 fear left before reaching terror level 2, destroying the remaining buildings grants us victory. For that to happen, we'll need to find a leaf in our next power. If we found a leaf last turn, we'll be looking for animals instead. Gift of Power does have leaf, and would let us extend our hand further if necessary. Promises of Protection can be useful to us in general, as it can help clear a land that might otherwise just blight and be a problem for us later, but without leaf, we'll have to pass this time. Call to Trade has leaf, and is a good control card early on for pulling a town out of a ravaging land. Razor Sharp Undergrowth also provides leaf, and can be used in a variety of ways as long as our land isn't blighted. Again for theme, and because all we need is leaf to defeat the invaders, I'll pick up Undergrowth. Our presence goes into the city, and to show how the turn might proceed if the game were to continue, we'll convert one of our jungle presence into a beast. Playing our hand, we proceed. Prey on the builders in the mountains, gathering the beasts from the jungle. Use Ranging Hunt in the mountains as well, gathering a beast from the wetlands and triggering Terror level 2. Push 1 beast into the sands, along with your presence, using Razor Sharp Undergrowth there to clear it when it ravages. Finally, Command the Beast lets us clear everything else. Our fear cards will ultimately be irrelevant as we claim victory with Sharp Fangs behind the leaves. Some final thoughts. If the game does continue into turn 5, gain a major power, using the energy growth option if you need to. Because we rely heavily on gaining powers, our tactics are likely to change game to game. Sometimes we can just use the first new power, saving our unique powers for next turn, extending our hand even more. Other times, we might not even hit our elements and have to adapt to what we're given. While it's good to be cautious about lands blighting, don't be afraid to let a land blight if the advantage is worth it, whether that's isolating the land or allowing resources to be used on a different threat. Alright everyone, that's all I've got this time. Hope you gained some insight, and good luck in your next games.